Get your earballs ready. Welcome to the Greg and Tim Show podcast. Take time to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Greg and Tim.
Welcome back to the Greg and Tim Show. I am Tim. This is my co-host, Greg. And
That's me.
We just finished interviewing a guy by the name of Drew Dudley. He wrote the book Day One.
This is Day One.
We're going to talk about this a little bit more.
It's fun. He got into some stuff that we didn't know we were going to get into. We talked about some favorite TV shows. Yeah. We talked about some life experiences. And I think we got a little emotional at one point.
Yeah, we talked about some serious issues.
Yeah.
We talked about his life. We talked about some funny things. And he made a crazy prediction about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you're going to have to stay tuned.
You're going to have to stick around
to see what that is.
Yeah. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and share button. And everything's chaptered below. So if you want, you can skip to certain parts of the show if you'd like.
And
don't skip, though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are. You're going to really enjoy this interview.
You're going to love it.
And share it with everybody else, because I think everyone could benefit from the things that he has to say.
Yeah,
Grab your phone. It's podcast time. It's the Greg and Tim Show. It's the Greg and Tim Show.
Today in this episode, we are honored to have the distinguished Drew Dudley in our virtual studio. He's an acclaimed leadership speaker, creator of the Lollipop moment, and we'll get into that Lollipop moment a little bit later. He had a TED Talk, which was amazing, which kind of catapulted this book here. This is Day One. Drew's insights have inspired countless individuals, including myself, because I've taken these to heart, on their leadership journeys.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that with the free throws early on a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah.
But in this episode, rejection therapy. In this episode, we're going to delve into the profound wisdom Drew shares in his book, exploring the transformative concepts of every day as Day One.
Yep.
Join us for a captivating conversation with a thought leader who challenges conventional wisdom and empowers us all to embrace leadership from the very beginning.
Yeah, so let's get ready for a dose of inspiration, actionable insights, as we discuss leadership, the life and the inspirational speaker, and the powerful idea that today is
Day One.
Day One. So how have you been doing?
I've been doing pretty well, actually, my friend. It's been a busy day today. I've done 2 different presentations today, and I think it's why I just don't want to bother taking my
dress clothes,
taking my tie off, man. It's just been doing it nonstop. So I'll tell you though, this studio looks better the darker it gets outside. So I'm like, looking, this is the first time I've ever done this late in the day, and I'm like, I should do all of these like this. It looks way slicker.
It looks very good.
It's magic hour though, right? So everybody looks good.
It's magic hour in here all the time because it's
I like it.
Dark except for the lights that are right in front of us. So I don't know. One time we did a test interview with my brother, and I'm like, hey, can you turn up your lights a little bit? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's trying to figure out how to turn on his lights. Meanwhile, we forgot to turn on all of our lights. So we did the whole recording, and it looks like normal with your eyeballs, right? But we didn't have our bright lights on. So when we looked at the interview, we couldn't actually use it because none of the bright lights were on. So, and he didn't even tell us. He's like, well, I couldn't see you guys, but I thought that was on purpose.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
Yeah. In fairness, he was drunk.
He might have been.
Do you know there's something called Drunk Shakespeare?
No.
A bunch of cities in the States.
Tell me about it.
I think it's a cast of about 5 people, and the idea is they're going to perform a Shakespearean play, but one of the actors has to down 4 shots of Jack Daniels before the show starts.
Yeah.
And you can pay $500 and sit on a throne with your partner and be on the stage and like pass judgments on people, as well as
a throne of judgment.
Yeah. So I really want to see this, because nothing but respect to a guy who knows he's getting bombed and he's going to go on stage and do Shakespeare. So I think this would be bad. You get just like a bottle of Moet if you sit up on the stage. So yeah. I think it's a hell of a date night.
Whereabouts is this?
This is in both Chicago, DC, and I think they're in one other, probably New York too, right?
Chicago.
But I was looking at it. I'm in Chicago next weekend, and was looking for something to do, and I'm like, Drunk Shakespeare.
I would go see that. Have you heard of those marathons that like every mile or whatever they take a sip of alcohol, but it's like a regular marathon?
Yeah. So that doesn't seem like much, but you're running a marathon and you're doing a sip or 2 ounce booze every way, man. Like, you're a mess.
What's a marathon? 22 miles?
26.2 miles. Yeah.
So you're drinking 52 ounces of alcohol.
Is it a beer or is it booze, man? Because if that's booze, that's insanity.
Yeah. When I did the Manitoba Marathon last year, there was a booze stop, but it was only one. I was like, is that real booze?
Just the one. Man.
He was like, is that real? And I had never seen this. Like, that real booze? Like, I'm not going to do that, but it's kind of funny.
I think it'd be better if all those people who hand out the water cups on the way, like some of them are randomly just filled with vodka, but you don't tell anyone, and you just watch as people shoot it back. And I saw a post recently on somewhere on the net where the woman posted, "Hey, whoever put the frozen vodka in the water bottle in the fridge, you're the one responsible for Julie getting drunk at her soccer game." And then someone responded, "Look, man, if Julie got drunk, either she's never drank water before, or she's been partying pretty hard." So, like, you don't accidentally get hammered off of vodka thinking that it's water.
I was like, "What is this?" It's like when those people that give birth and they don't know they're pregnant, and all of a sudden they give birth to a kid and they never knew they were pregnant in the first place. That
baffles me.
Yeah, and it's speaking of what drinking alcohol and you're thinking it's something else. Like, we would do communion, and their old school church communion is real wine. But I grew up in the Mennonite culture where it was just grape juice. And the first time I went to an Orthodox church, and it's like I literally had to spit it out. It's like, it was so embarrassing. That's not grape juice at all.
Hey, you got coffee right now too. That's perfect. We all got our coffee.
Actually, this is just water, but I like to make it look like I'm all sophisticated.
Yeah.
I also don't have my Greg and Tim show mug.
Not yet.
Greg, get on the mug. What are you doing?
He has to be in studio.
You just said
he was supposed to be in this mug, but it turns out he didn't show up.
No.
That's okay. Tim's mug's full of rye, so.
Hey, man, hell, the Raptors traded me today. So
yeah.
I just found that out, that I've been dealt by the Raptors today to go along with everybody else. So,
well, you got a first round draft pick, so you can't be too salty.
I think I'm worth at least a first round. I think because they go by weight, overall weight in the. So they're like, well, this dude's 260. So I think we're going to need a first rounder back for that, just in terms of the sheer volume you're getting in the deal.
The big man up the middle, right? Oh, well, should we get into it?
5'8" inches of big man.
What? We should get it. This is perfect stuff.
This is all we want to do.
We don't need to get into anything. What are you talking about? I'm having a good time.
We haven't started yet?
No, this is all in. This better be all in.
We'll leave it in, I guess.
Okay, good.
You told me that once we started recording, I had to be funny. So.
I said it had to be on the record.
The problem with all these questions, everyone's so serious about the questions, and they stopped having a good time. And the good stuff is when you're not so stuffy and you're talking about drunk marathons.
So I'm going to tell you,
I had listened to your podcast, so I am well aware that being super serious is not really the way we go and do things here.
That's awesome. That's the best thing anyone could say about us.
I might actually clip that and put that in as a reference. But
man, if you don't enjoy you and Tim talking to each other about your lives, you are not a fan of the podcast.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, his wife is one of those people, but yeah,
she listens.
I like any podcast that starts because two guys are on a road trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because how many have started that way when you really break it down? Have been like, we should do a podcast. It's the 21st century version of we should buy a bar. Really, that's what starting a podcast is. It's guys' 21st century version of, hey, we should buy a bar.
Well, Greg, that was his whole pitch. Hey, Tim, I have a great idea. We should start a podcast. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure.
He didn't think that I was actually serious.
No, I did. It's like, whatever you want. Sure. You want to go murder someone and stuff their body in a trunk? Start a podcast? Nah, I'm good either way.
Tim's big into the mob. I don't know if you know this.
I was just like, okay, this went a direction I did not anticipate. Now I'm like, am I liable or something?
What's that one with what's his name where he says I paint houses?
Oh, it's The Irishman.
The Irishman. Have you seen The Irishman?
I haven't seen The Irishman yet, though. It's one of those things I've been meaning to watch, but instead just watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine again.
I'm on that right now, too. We're on season 5. God.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
I've seen it like 9 times. It's ridiculous. I just had it on permanently during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was the only thing that made me feel better.
Yeah. It's such a good show.
Well, no, I can't make that joke. It's not 21st century anymore. I have all these things I want to say, but
you're not allowed.
Canceled.
Yeah, we were canceled for a week there 2 weeks ago because we had a guy on talking about the moon landing.
Or the lack of
yes, what you're saying now. So Greg titled everything, "Was the moon landing faked?" And then YouTube is like, "I don't think you can say that. No one's going to listen to you anymore."
Well, I mean, he walked right out of the studio and off the edge of the world, so tough break for that guy. The sea monsters got him. Oh dear.
Yeah, so that one got us not canceled, but we've seen a little bit of a decline.
Why would you be canceled for that? I mean, it's not you're supposed to bring on interesting guests, and people who think that the moon landing was fake are inherently interesting. Or Congress people.
Yeah, I think you've forgotten we live in Canada and we have a liberal government, but
we're not.
And everyone's super thrilled about that too. I've seen all of the flags because nothing says family values in a giant flag with the F word on it.
That's correct.
Thank you, my conservative friends.
Have you been to Florida?
Oh God! Have you been to upstate New York?
Oh, really? Is upstate New York Republican?
Upstate New York, man. You wouldn't think it. In central Pennsylvania, like apparently it's still 2020, and they are not happy about how things worked out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really breaks my heart, man.
Hey,
I've had a long and interesting day. So if I seem like a very dry humor today, anyone listening, I may sound a little bit like an asshole.
So
I don't mean to.
So you match my humor. I love dry humor just like you. So I'll follow you the entire way. He's got some serious questions and he can get
serious. Not serious questions. We
some of them are serious.
We got some good questions because I also want to talk about the book a little bit, and people are going to watch this and go, "Hey, that's the guy that spoke at my conference." And he's hanging out with those two guys, so he must be a real person. So we kind of want to have a real person conversation with you, but also talk about your book. Is that cool?
Okay. Well, let's hope that's what they say. He's talking to these two guys, so he must be a real person, as opposed to I need to return this book. I love the podcast, though, guys. I'm so thrilled to be here. This is really cool. So
that's awesome. I appreciate that. That's awesome. So I got the physical copy, as I told you the other day. I've been listening to the audio copy because I'm a very slow reader. So the physical copy is more so that I can make notes now. Because I have notes on my phone, but I like to be able to look at them visually, and when I was talking and stuff like that. So that's why I got the physical copy. And Tim actually just binge listened to the episode or to the book.
The book, yeah.
What last 2 weeks ago or something
Monday.
like that? Yeah. So
this Monday.
I got to tell you, I apologize for what I did to the French language at different places in there. And I also said Albert Camus. It's Albert Camus. And I still, to this day, melt with embarrassment with the fact that hey, man, you could try reading something for 12 straight hours. It'll mess with you. I had no idea. They're like, you should take a break. Oh no, how hard can reading be?
6 hours and 24 minutes of reading that might take a little bit out of you. And it's funny because I mentioned to Greg the story you told about Kevin Costner in the movie Bull Durham. And he's like, Bull what? I was like, seriously, you have not seen Bull Durham? He's like, no, I've never seen it.
I haven't.
You haven't seen Bull Durham? I've seen it 53 times. You want me to do it for you right now?
Yes,
exactly. I believe in the Church of Baseball. I've tried all the major religions and most of the minor ones. See, I can do the movie for you if you want me to. And I apologize to anyone offended by that terrible, terrible Carolina accent right there.
I have to see it. It's on my list to watch this week now because, I didn't start watching baseball until I was probably 9 or 10 years old. So by that time, those movies had already come out. My first real baseball movies would have been Sandlot, Field of Dreams. Those movies were, and I watched them over and over and over again, Peppercorn from Sandlot. That was the pinnacle of my childhood right there.
You've never seen The Sandlot? You've
never seen The Sandlot?
I've never seen The Sandlot. Tell you what, how about we switch up here?
Yes.
You watch Bull Durham, I'll watch The Sandlot. We'll come back on a future episode and offer our reviews.
Yes.
That seems fair.
Because I think Greg Zahn actually picked The Sandlot over Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
When we did the this or that.
Greg Zahn is wrong about so many things.
Bull Durham is ranked higher in most lists of best baseball movies than both of those movies. Anyway, I digress.
Bull Durham's usually in the top.
Any list that doesn't rank Bull Durham higher than The Sandlot is a list that I have no time for.
Exactly.
It's the best baseball movie ever made, and I don't think it's close.
Agreed.
Have you been to Field of Dreams?
I have been to the Field of Dreams. I have played catch on the Field of Dreams.
Nice.
And I'll tell you something. You should go because it's 2.5 hours from everything.
Yeah.
And it's just like the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still is because they put up those stands for that game, which is awesome.
Yep.
But when I got there, it was just like the movie. And you know how a lot of tourist places you get there and those wonderful empty photos of you standing there, it's actually like 400 people in line. There was not a soul there. We arrived and we had the whole thing to ourselves for an hour. We got to run the bases, play some catch. It was amazing, but it is 2.5 hours from like anywhere.
Yeah.
I've never been to a place that is always 2 hours from everywhere else.
They opened up a baseballism there. I'm a big like merch guy. Like I like to buy merch in different places, and we talked about my hat obsession and stuff like that. But they opened up a baseballism there, and you can play catch there. You can get some food. I think you can get a hot dog or something like that at the stand there, and then they've got the store. But did you know that you can actually sleep there?
I did not know that.
You can rent the house, and then in the evening you get it to yourself, and you can sleep there.
Really?
Yep.
Back when I used to drink, I could sleep anywhere though. So like it was their problem keeping me out of there. So
just hanging out on the. Wait, that leads me to my first question.
Hey, are we on? Like, have we started? I'm not actually.
This is perfect so far. This is as long as you're not wanting anything cut out, we're not cutting any of this stuff.
I don't want Greg Zahn hunting my ass down.
Oh man, I do miss his roasts and everything like that. So, but I was a fan. So I'm going to ask you my first formal question, and then we'll just keep on chatting again after that. Who's Drew Dudley?
Who is Drew Dudley? Drew Dudley is a work in progress. And basically, if you want to talk about who I am in terms of what keeps me busy every day, I am an author and a speaker. And what I try to do is take a perspective on leadership that I developed at the University of Toronto and spread it as far and wide as I possibly can. It was developed based on, I was really inspired by some students who weren't giving themselves the credit they deserved as terms of leaders in the world. And I turned into somebody who, I guess if you want to put it down simply, Drew Dudley is a storyteller. And what I've tried to do is, because the story is the basic unit of human understanding, what I try to do is take ideas that I believe are important and wrap them in Velcro so they stick. Because I don't want to ever claim that any of the stuff that I say is completely original and no one's ever thought or no one's ever said it before. But I think our job as speakers and people who are trying to convey ideas, people who traffic in ideas, it's our job to take things that other people know already, wrap them in Velcro so it sticks. And ultimately, that's basically what I try to do, is take good ideas, wrap them up in Velcro so you remember them, and share them with other people. So I'm my buddy Blake used the term professional sentimentalist, and I kind of liked it, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's our best who is answer so far. Not to knock the other guys, but I don't think everybody else was really. You do speak professionally, you host yourself in a conference, and you do all these, like the first time I ever saw you was in Toronto. I think it was the Heritage Castle or whatever it's called there, and you spoke in front of all of us, and I'm like, man, I have never heard of this guy, but everything he's saying I want to learn more about, right? I think that's the Velcro part.
Yeah, I hope so. And honestly, it sucks to be famous, and so I'm glad I'm not. It really does. I've been lucky enough to be at events and speak with people who are famous, and just the way that they're always pulled in 1,000 different directions. And I think even worse is they can never really be themselves either, right? Like there are a few famous people who really have made a career out of just being unapologetically themselves. Like Gary Vaynerchuk's an excellent example.
Yeah.
Lots of people admire Gary Vaynerchuk for a lot of reasons. For me, it's because he seems to be relentlessly Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And whether you agree with him or not, or you love all his ideas or not, he doesn't get up there and clean it up. And I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Now someone out there might be like, Gary Vaynerchuk was just found guilty of this. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But so to my best knowledge right now, well, it's interesting too, right? Because you talk about people you admire, you talk about people as references, and because I don't really listen to the news anymore, sometimes people are like, what just happened with them, eh? And I'm just like, something that's going to make me wish I had not mentioned them as an example, and and it kind of unfolds like that. But it sucks to be famous. I noticed that from famous people.
My favorite
so
Gary.
It's nice to be the center of attention, but not be famous.
Yeah. My favorite Gary V comment or his story that he told was he went to do like one of those like conferences and speak in front of people, and they wouldn't let him in the room because he was wearing sneakers and jeans. But
Isn't everybody rich and famous wear sneakers and jeans now?
Well, this would have been like probably 6 or 7 years ago, like prior to, casual Fridays being every day, right? So
if Mr. Beast can wear it, I think the rest of us can wear it too, right? So,
do you know who Mr. Beast is, Tim? No.
I'll tell you. Here's the thing, Tim. Don't feel bad, because there was a thing that was just on the internet, because I don't watch the news, but I scroll the internet because that's healthy. And it was like, if you can't name 8 of these 10 people, you're old. And I got 1, and it was Mr. Beast, and I wasn't sure. So and I'll tell you, I'm feeling a little dizzy today. I've been walking into walls all day because this is my first day wearing these glasses, and they're bifocals, which means I have officially entered a different stage in my life. So for everybody out there, the day that you put bifocals on for the first time is a moment where you have to say, this is a line of demarcation in my life. And I've just been bumping into stuff the whole day, but I can read my phone, which is great. But you guys are talking to me on my first day of, I'm going to guess that we're now talking upper middle age, right? I'm not sure how you break it down. We could talk about like how middle age breaks down, but I think I'm in the upper crust of it now. Like just before lower senior citizen is upper middle age.
I think you might be younger than both of us, though.
I don't know. I'm 47.
Well, you're the same age as Tim.
I turned 48 in 12 days.
You're 48, man. You're looking good.
No, in 12 days I turned. I'm not 48 yet.
Okay. That came out wrong. I apologize. You're looking good, man. Like,
you sexy.
I didn't mean it to be that creepy. I'm so sorry.
So I have a question here, but before I get to it, there's a book in front of us. We referenced it, but the people that are listening right now don't really know anything about Day One. I enjoyed Day One. I read it, or I had the audiobook read to me. You read to me for 6 hours and 24 minutes on Monday. But for the people out there, could you tell us what this book is about and why somebody should read it?
Yeah, I mean, the book is about a type of leadership that I think to which we all can and should aspire. When I talk about leadership, I talk about powerful moments of interpersonal interaction, moments of impact, moments of courage, empowerment, forgiveness, compassion, because I believe that those are powerful things that everyone can do. The challenge is that this thing that's the most powerful thing any of us can do, which is to have an impact on other people, we've been taught to stick them all in a basket, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, and call them the little things. And I don't think they're little. I think they're the most powerful things that we do. But the problem, and the thing I think is great, is it's the only power on earth that's accessible to everyone on earth. Every other form of power on earth has these systemic barriers between that power and most of the people on the planet, but not the ability to create these powerful moments of interpersonal impact. And so what I did is I wanted to write a practical guide to how to do that on a consistent basis. And that's what it is. This is Day One, a practical guide to leadership that matters. And that was a big thing for me. Why should people read it? I think the number one reason that people should read it is that all of us have been educated out of our leadership. We've been taught it's about money and power and influence. And as a result, the vast majority of us who don't have those things have come to believe that leadership isn't actually a part of who we are. And the book lays out why that isn't the case. And most importantly, it provides a step-by-step process on how to change our behavior. Because it's one thing to tell great stories. And I love telling stories, right? That's how people understand things. It's how we've conveyed information since the beginning of humanity. But I think that one of the key pieces is if you're speaking, if you're writing a book, you have to give people something they can do differently and a bit of a step-by-step process. So that's what the book was intended to do. And you say it was 6 hours and 23 minutes to read. It was actually about 27 hours to read it. And it was the 6 hours and 23 minutes that actually was any good that we put into the damn thing. And look, that book took 11 years to get out of my head. And so, someone said it takes a while to read it. I'm like, you should try writing the damn thing and see how long that takes. Although the book took that many years to get done, but I actually wrote it in 18 days,
right?
Which I don't know why I volunteered that information, because it just seems like I wrote it in 18 days when I got my heart broken, and on a gray October, November in 2000, and God, I don't even remember what year it was, 2015 maybe. I actually sat down. I hadn't left the apartment in like 4 days, and I just sat down and wrote it in 2 weeks, and then spent a year and a half editing it. But it was actually, intended to be done for a long time. And you know how everyone's like, oh, I'm going to write that book. I've got it all in my head.
Yeah.
Finally, it took like someone really kind of breaking me in half to sit down and actually pour it out. And, I'm pretty grateful for that, to be honest.
Yeah, you could write a Taylor Swift song, right? That's how she writes all of her songs after a breakup, right? You wrote a book.
Yeah, I think, of our vintage, though, it's more Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
Because I see Taylor and I see a blonde Alanis, because that was when I was that age, and Jagged Little Pill. I played it. I was one of my former students was in a car with me. We were driving along, and I was playing Jagged Little Pill, and her comment was, "This is like Taylor Swift if she was really pissed off." And I'm like, Taylor Swift doesn't exist without this album. Katy Perry doesn't exist. Miley Cyrus doesn't exist without this album. Sorry, this show really does kind of go all over the place. You talked about the best baseball movies, the best I'm Pissed at You albums. Again, it's Jagged Little Pill, end of story.
Did you know, Tim, this is something you didn't know about Tim, he doesn't like Alanis Morissette.
I can't stand Alanis Morissette.
You are not alone in that, and I have been defending my girl Alanis for, I guess, since I was in grade 10, man. So I'm used to the haters.
I admit the album's great. I just can't stand her tone of her voice. It sounds whiny, but that's just me.
I'm assuming if you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you've seen How I Met Your Mother, right?
Oh, yes. Except you can't watch How I Met Your Mother now. It's like Cheers. You're just like, oh, this is just sexual harassment for 30 minutes.
That's my favorite. Cheers is my favorite show.
How I Met Your Mother.
Cheers is my favorite show.
Barney Stinson.
Cheers is amazing, but you watching it with today's understanding of some of the problematic pieces in there.
Yeah.
Like, I love Boston Legal, right?
Yeah.
But you can't watch that show now without being like, there's some stuff wrong with this show.
Yeah.
Try watching old Johnny Carson, late night shows.
Oh,
or even what's his name, Craig Ferguson. I watched Craig
Norm
Ferguson's
Macdonald
Clicks.
was awful.
Yeah.
I love Norm Macdonald.
I love him too.
Fearless, but like some of his jokes about women did not age well. You know what I mean? But
okay, let's go back.
Well, I didn't get to ask my How I Met Your Mother question. The Robin Sparkles. Did you know that it was? Did you know she was kind of like based off of Alanis?
I did. As soon as I saw Robin Sparkles, especially when she went dark.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I was like, there it is.
So anyway,
I love it.
Sorry, Tim. I had to talk about How I Met Your Mother. I like the show, and yeah, Barney probably goes a little bit over with the playbook. They still sell it at Chapters.
I know.
So I have two.
I admit I bought it
and read it. You just buy it or read it?
I read it.
It's one of those coffee table books. It's a conversation starter.
The bro code. I read it. Remember how at the beginning I said, "Who is Drew Dudley?" and I said he's a work in progress. That's some of the progress.
That's fantastic. You gotta be.
We can be therapy. You can talk to us. Yeah. Well, sit down on the couch. If you're not comfortable in the chair, just sit on the couch. Put the camera there. We'll talk. So I'd
like if everyone who talked to me had my book staring at me, though. It just makes me feel like a really important person.
I'm going to go back to the book.
Turned it around.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the book for a second. I have two questions. Number one, you explained very well why someone should read the book and what the book's about. How does the title Day One fit into that description?
Yeah, the idea is a lot of the Day One concept came from various places in my own experience. Some of it was the things that I had worked on in leadership. Some of it had been some of the people that I met along the way. early on in the book, I tell the story of a guy that I met in the desert named Mustafa.
Yeah, the guy from Lion King.
He ran the tour cup. That's Mufasa. I learned that the hard way when I met him, and I said, "Oh, like the Lion King." And he's like, "That's Mufasa," but he forgave me, and he told me that every day that he went to work, he looked at it as if it was his first day, because he told me as we're driving towards a cliff, he's like, "Oh, it's my first day." Yeah. And I thought, great, I've got the new guy on cliff jumping. And he basically said, it's been my first day for 17 years. And so this idea that the first day and how you approach it and how it's different than other days really hit me. And then when I coupled that experience, and that was in 2010 when he gave me this idea of every day is day one, is I then quit drinking. I was I am an alcoholic. And when I quit drinking, one of the things you learn in recovery is that if you don't want to have a drink for the rest of your life, you have to make the incredibly hard decision not to have a drink today. And let's face it, that decision, quote unquote, can be the hardest thing that you ever have to do.
Yeah.
But you treat every day of the rest of your life as if it's your first day of recovery, because that means you don't rest on the laurels of what you've accomplished in the past, but you also don't get overwhelmed by how many days there are still to go in the future.
Yep.
So you only focus on the non-negotiables of that day. And for me, to quote Aaron Sorkin, my number one priority between getting out of bed in the morning and getting back into it is to not have a drink. That's the non-negotiable. The idea is with our leadership, it's the same thing. There are non-negotiable behaviors that have to happen every day, and you have to stay committed to them. So the idea is this is day one, is the first day of a difficult voyage. And it's, there is no one day in your life that doesn't start with a day one, right? Whether it's heading to physical health, mental health, romantic life, your job, whatever it is, and your leadership, there isn't a single one day to which you want to get in any of those categories that doesn't start with a day one. And day one's the day you say, these are the non-negotiables. This is what's going to happen every day. And that came from 12-step programs, that idea that this is day one.
Yep.
Every day is day one. Tomorrow's day one. So's the day after. That means you stay committed. And if you string enough day ones together, it's amazing how different the 10,000th day one is than the first one, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Myself, I stopped drinking at the end of 2020. So I 21, 22, 23. So I'm 3 years and almost 2 months in to not drinking. And I didn't do it because I was drinking too much. I did it because I actually want to try not drinking. And
I know lots of people, and then they're just like, "Oh, why
did I
ever do it?"
Yeah. So it became something like, I'm like, and I save money, I save a ton of money, and then I go on trips with Tim.
Yeah, and I think that the only time I really miss it, guys, is like I went to my first swim up bar when I was down on vacation recently, and honestly, I just sat there thinking I would kill to be able to have a drink right now.
Yeah.
It's the only time really in the last 5-6 years that I've really missed it.
Yeah.
So but life is so much better.
Yeah. You wake up a lot better. You feel a lot better. I go out with friends on like Christmas parties and stuff, and the next day they're like just wrecked, and I'm just a normal everyday, right? So it's
a social hangover for me, man.
Yeah.
Like it was a social hangover. You woke up and the first thing you thought is who's pissed at me.
Yeah.
And that really upset me.
Yeah. And we the social hangover part of it is this is a whole different part of the social hangover. We talked myself and yourself a long time ago during COVID. You spoke to one of our staff, or some of our staff, and we talked about introverts and extroverts. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And me and Tim had a conversation about introverts and extroverts, and you had a great definition of what an extrovert is.
Oh yeah, someone explained it to me because I came out as mildly extroverted on one of those MBTI tests.
Yeah.
And I thought mildly extroverted, but that doesn't jive with my concept of myself. And then the person explained that introversion and extroversion isn't about how outgoing you are. It's about how you gain and lose energy.
Yeah.
And that extroverts gain energy from interactions while introverts lose it. So even though while I'm interacting with people, I'm very outgoing and extroverted, the whole time I'm losing steam.
Yeah.
And other extroverts, it would be like they're gaining steam when they're out at a party. I'm losing it. And so the difference between introversion and extroversion isn't about how outgoing you are. It's whether your interactions give you energy or take energy from you. Because when I'm done, I got to go watch The West Wing for 4 episodes. After I do this, it's back to Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Parks and Rec.
This is exhausting.
So yeah, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
So it's funny because we had this discussion about extroverts versus introverts, and I think, and I've come to this conclusion, we're total opposites.
Yeah.
Greg is an introvert by definition in that he loses energy as he interacts with people, but he's learned tendencies to be an introvert as far as how he interacts with people, et cetera, et cetera.
I've learned to be an extrovert.
He's learned extrovert tendencies. And I'm the opposite. I think I gain energy talking to people, but I've learned introverted tendencies. So I tend to introvert myself. So it's interesting that we're totally the opposite in what we've learned our behaviors are.
I think the pandemic changed a lot of things, at least for me too. Like I'm much quieter now than I used to be. Like, you do stuff like this and I love it. I just love it, but I will be exhausted afterwards.
Yeah.
But I'm different now than I was before the pandemic. And it's hard to put exactly how, but I'm definitely a little bit different. And I've taken to heart a lot more. I do this thing in the book called Edge of the Bed Advice, where I ask people for if they were sitting on the edge of their bed the last night before they left home, or they're sitting on the edge of their kid's bed the night before their kid left home, what advice would they give them? And somebody told me in a workshop that his edge of the bed advice would be, in your life, you will be presented with opportunity after opportunity to shut the hell up. Seize every one of them. And I just loved it. And I've tried very hard to better embody that. Not when you're on a podcast, obviously, because that's not going to make your guys' lives any easier. But you will be presented with opportunity after opportunity to shut the hell up. Seize every single one of them you can, and your life will be better.
That's
and
what my wife says.
True. She says, shut the...
She's like, sometimes you should just stop talking.
I say that.
Yeah, you say that too. Yeah. Most people in my life tell me that. You should probably just relax and stop talking.
Yeah, my mouth gets me in a little bit of trouble. It always has, but it also gets me paid, right?
Yeah.
People tell me to stop talking. I'm like, yeah, I can't. I started talking once and someone handed me a check. Are you going to stop? You want me to stop talking? Stop paying me.
Yeah.
Right now, someone out there is like, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I would love to get paid to stop talking. I just, nobody cares enough, I guess.
Okay, so I had a question for you, and it's maybe not so much a question as a statement. I really liked in the book when you talked about leadership as a point of how somebody views every situation in their life versus a position of leadership. And I think that in society, we compare ourselves to someone else who has those positions, whether it's a job, whether it's socially, and doesn't really look to their circle of who they're involved with. Every opportunity that you have to interact with someone is a chance to be a leader, whether it's as an example, whether it's with a mother with their children, whether it's A, B, or C. And a story that I've thought of for us, and we go to church and there's a story in the Bible about the talents where someone's given 1 talent, 5 talents, 10 talents, and they're all given different types or amounts of equity or talents, and they're asked to do whatever they can with it. And the person with 5 talents made 5 more talents. They invested it. The person with 10 talents doubled it and made 20, so on and so forth. And the person with 1 talent just dug a hole in the ground and just said, here's your talent when whoever gave it to them came back. So I think that's a valuable thing to know, in that everyone's given different responsibilities, but how you behave or how you react to those responsibilities really is indicative of how you live your life. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah. I mean, one of the interesting things, my friend, is that I've thought about leadership in a bunch of different ways. I thought about it as atomic leadership, where we're all atoms flying around. And when you think of it that way, we're all moving around as let's say we're atoms, right? And then you can hit another one and you send it off in a completely different direction. But also the thing about molecules and atoms is that we could bond together. Like, the 3 of us might be out there in the world, each of us having our own impact on other people, but we could also bond together and create an entirely different substance. Like 2 H's and an O make water. Water then can interact with all kinds of other substances and solubles and create entirely new things. And so I've thought about leadership like that, is that if we all look at ourselves as an individual atom moving around in the universe, every time we interact with somebody, we can send them in a different direction. We can bond with them. Once we're bonded with them, we're something totally different. And then we can impact other people as well. I don't know enough about physics, though, to really sort of play the whole thing out, if that makes any sense. But I also have thought about leadership, as you were saying. What if we stopped thinking of leaders as existing? Because I think right now we treat leadership as it's something you earn. And once you're there, you keep it. But what if we said that you're only a leader when you're demonstrating leadership? Any other time when you're not actively demonstrating leadership, you're no longer a leader, which means your goal wouldn't be to be a leader. Your goal would be to be a leader as often as possible. And so what percentage of your life you're engaging in leadership is actually your measure of leadership, as opposed to saying, oh, I've done a certain amount in the world, now I'm officially a leader. I'm a CEO, so I'm a leader.
Yep.
It would be interesting because the goal wouldn't be to say you're a leader. It would be to say I'm often a leader. So for instance, when you were asleep, you would not be a leader because you wouldn't be actively engaging in leadership. So it's weird. Like what I think of leadership, someone told me early on in my study of it that there are more definitions of leadership than there are books on leadership. And so that every book's got 3 different definitions of it. So yes, I see leadership as existing in individual behavior. How we go about explaining that, hey, everybody's got their own analogy, right? But really the core heart of the book and my work is that you have every right to call yourself a leader. Because if you change the direction someone is going over the course of a day, it's dramatic. Someone told me, and you probably heard this before, if a ship leaves from New York to fly, if a ship flies from New York to London, if it sets sail to go to London from New York City, and about 100 miles off of New York, it veers 1.5 degrees to the left, it will end up hundreds of miles away from London.
Yep.
Because it moved a degree and a half to the left. If we think of that, man, every time we move somebody's life a degree and a half to the left, something cool is happening. They're going to end up somewhere completely different. Yeah. Hopefully we didn't pitch them into somewhere terrible. And that's always something to realize too.
Hopefully we're getting them in the right direction and not steering them in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah, James Clear talks about the 1% every day, like if you are doing 1% better every single day. So it's kind of similar to what you're going to say. I had a question about, I'm going to push back a little bit about the whole leader. It seems like everyone's talking about being a leader. You're going to be a leader. I'm going to be a leader. Everyone wants to be a leader. So what I would ask is, are there some times where there needs to be followers? There needs to be people who are under the leader doing some of the legwork, where everyone can't be quote unquote a leader in their company, in their business, in their organizations. Do we need followers? And can you be a follower and a leader at the same time?
I think the best leaders are followers and leaders at the same time. 100%, man. I talk about everyone as a leader, but I mean, it's a particular type of leadership. Yep. And there's a huge overview of leadership, but everyone is capable of. And then there are subsections of leadership within that not everyone can or should do, without a doubt. And there are different roles that you have to play in different scenarios. For instance, there are all kinds of roles where I end up leading because of my personality, but there are some places where I should definitely step back. When I'm working on a scientific, if we ever got assigned a scientific project with someone, I need to step back.
Yeah.
Right. You know what's really interesting? You want to see different ways of leading? Go to escape rooms with people.
Yes.
I'm terrible at those.
It's
so
true.
I am a follower in escape rooms.
Yeah.
Right. Just the concept of them doesn't work for me. I know that once you go and do a bunch of them, you start to learn the tricks. But when I'm in there, how there's always codes to break and numbers to work with.
Yeah.
I'm a follower. Yeah. Big time. But when it comes to, if I go to a conference and I'm sitting at a table and you know how they give you assignments at the table together, I'm almost always the guy who ends up sort of coordinating what's going on there.
You have to present.
So I think that the ability to shift between follower and leader, I think that is actually an excellent attribute of really great leaders. So not everyone can or should be a CEO.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to be. I want to be straight up with that. When I say everyone should be a leader, I am not saying everyone should be president of the United States or could be.
No.
Well, Maybe that's a bad example because apparently anybody can be president of the United States. But whole other conversation.
On both sides.
Hey, rock Hanks 2024. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine? Yeah, I think Schwarzenegger would have been president if he could have ran for president.
True, but he couldn't, right? Because he wasn't born in America, just like Ted Cruz. Yeah, Ted Cruz burned.
Or Obama.
Look at the look he gave you there.
I love Republicans. They're the best.
Oh man. So I'm gonna kind of touch a little bit on the leadership thing because Tim's got to ask a couple questions, so it's my turn, I guess. Okay. We've heard the Lollipop moment, and I'm going to link the Lollipop moment in the video here at the bottom in the description, so people can watch that and kind of catch you where you kind of exploded, right? Like the Lollipop moment was what really took you off, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so, without a doubt. I've been doing a lot of speaking around colleges and universities, but that particular talk on TED really sort of launched me into a different type of career.
Yeah. So when you acknowledge that a lot of leadership does go unnoticed, how can we, as everyday people, create a culture that appreciates and celebrates the subtle yet impactful leadership moments? And what can we do that will do your Lollipop moment, essentially?
Yeah, I think, and this is not a snarky response. What I think the answer is do it. Like you said, how do we recognize that type of leadership? By recognizing it. Okay. Now, how do we go about doing it? Like, I just think, I wish I had a different way of putting it, but like, how do we do it? By doing it, by actually making it. But the difference is, instead of accidentally doing it, because the Lollipop moment that I talk about in the TED Talk was an accident. Yeah. And the book is really about how to turn that type of behavior where you impact another person from an accident, a random act of kindness, to a conscious act of kindness. Yeah. Because I think we do a lot of celebrating random acts of kindness, and I think conscious acts of kindness are the way to go. And I think that one of the key things that I do is that I create these questions, and the book is about how to do this. But I take a question. So let's say I want to live impact every day. Step one is you identify impact as something you want to live. Yep. Step two is you define it using the phrase a commitment to. So impact is a commitment to creating moments that cause people to feel like they're better off for having interacted with you. And then you create a question that you can't answer without living the value. Yep. So for impact, it was, what have I done today to recognize someone else's leadership? And if you go through the day, and it's all based on psychology that says once something is in your head that you have to do, your brain will not relax until it's done. Yep. And so if you stick a question into your brain that you need to get answered, because the brain hates unanswered questions, you will be driven to seek out an answer. And if the question is, what have I done today to recognize someone else's leadership? Well, if you answer that question, I let you guys know how much I love the podcast because it makes me laugh. Yeah. Right. That's me taking a moment to answer the question, how have I recognized someone else's leadership? Because when you bring laughter into this world, that is an act of leadership. Yeah. I really, truly do believe that. And so that, to me, if I can answer that question, I have lived the value. For courage, what have I tried today that might not work, but I tried it anyway? Yeah. So what I do is I go into every day with a series of questions, and I try to get half of them answered. Because look, man, I got 6 values I want to live every day, and there's no way I'm going to do it every day. Yeah. Like, it's just setting yourself up. I'm going
to cut you off on the courage one for a second here, because that goes to the rejection therapy, right? Yeah. Sorry, I want to cut you off on it because I want to ask you a question. I told you about this situation where I got to do a free throw because of the courage, right? Where I got to do something. What did I do today that I thought wouldn't work that did work, right? So I got to do that free throw, and I got some pushback on that one. I got some pushback from Tim.
No. I did not push back.
No, sorry. I got a question from Tim. Yes. Because he wanted to question my moral authority on the whole thing. So my question for you is, if we're doing rejection therapy and showing the courage of what did I try today that I thought wouldn't work, that, I tried anyway. when do you get to a point where that may be something that is, and how did I write it down? Breaking rules or breaking, you know what I mean? So I did that. Obviously, that wasn't something that I was technically allowed to do.
Yeah, we snuck onto the court.
We didn't sneak on.
We got onto the court where you're supposed to pay money to experience what we experienced. The question is, have we stolen, and is that now not immoral?
Yeah, I mean, look, I love the idea of rejection therapy because I think it gets people trying things. It gets us over being afraid of doing things we shouldn't be afraid of, asking for things that we want. But I think, like everything else in the world, we have to use our common sense and determine whether or not, what did I try today that might not work, but I tried it anyway? Well, hell, you could do anything saying it might not work. You could light the Hollywood sign on fire just because you think it would be amazing to look at. So I 100, I never thought of it that way, though. Is that encouraging people to engage in unethical or illegal behavior?
Yeah.
It doesn't, let's put it this way. It doesn't eliminate that possibility, but it was not created intending that, if that's what you mean. But I honestly had never thought about the fact that maybe people are like, oh, you know what? I think that liberating this car in the parking lot is something that might not work, but I'm going to try it anyway. You're right. You could totally do that.
Yeah.
That was not how it was intended, though. But
one of your...
the other thing, too, is that who are you ripping off? You say, did you steal it? Like, you're supposed to pay for that experience, but how much that experience is worth is completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
And it's a $1 billion corporation that sets that price. So I'm going to forgive you on that one.
Okay, good.
And the other thing is
how you look at ethics, right?
And no one else was going to pay for the experience when he jumped on the court. That's the other argument.
Yeah, like the experience essentially was, we tried to do it. Like, we tried to do the experience without having a ticket, essentially, right? Yeah. So it's not like if they said no, we weren't going to fight them and argue with them. We would turn around and go back, right? So they didn't say no. So I
guess part of it is was anyone hurt?
Yeah.
I think is a big one, right? I think, who is harmed by you trying to add something to your life? And I think that's a question that we should always ask. Is it, I'm going to try to do this to make my life cooler or more interesting or whatever, or more rewarding. Does anyone have to pay for that?
Yeah.
Because you didn't pay for something you should have paid for, but did anyone pay for that?
Yeah.
And the question is, unless someone got fired for letting you on, probably not.
We did end up in a photo, though, with a group of people that didn't know us.
We've not figured out how to get that photo.
Isn't that like a How I Met Your Mother episode where they're like, don't you always have some rando in the photo?
Yes, that's exactly
I recently was at an event and they were like, I was there with a date and they were like, oh, Drew, get in. And all I could think of is like, what if we're not together, like down the road sometime? And you're like, who is that guy again? So I always hesitate when someone's like, no, it happens all the time at events, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let's all get a group photo. Okay, Drew, you come in. I'm like, I'm your guest speaker. No one's going to remember who the hell the guy in the middle was in the suit.
Yeah, and the courage thing has really helped me with the podcast here. So you are actually one of the catalysts for this podcast, because like when I told Tim I wanted to do it, it was a courage thing that I said, like, I can do this and I'm going to try doing this even though I've never done this before. And then reaching out to guests. Like yesterday we had a guest on that's going to come out on this week. So episode 23, the guest was one of Tim's idols from his childhood. And I reached out to him, and Tim's birthday is in a week and a half here. So I bought the guest's book and on a whim, and I contacted him. His name's Kurt Keelback. He used to be
I was going to say, is it Greg Zahn? Because I apologize if it was for being mean to Greg Zahn.
His name is Kurt Keelback, and he was the play-by-play announcer for the Winnipeg Jets back in the first time the Winnipeg Jets were around. And
really?
Radio, yeah.
We would, as children, we would listen to the radio for hockey because it wasn't on TV back in the day. Like, you couldn't watch every game. You would listen to every game. And he was the voice of the Winnipeg Jets for 17 years. And then he moved to Phoenix. And if you ever watch that Ovechkin goal where he like pulls it behind his neck and you hear the voice saying, drags it through, that's Kurt Keelback. Like he has the call on that call. So I reached out to him again as a moment of courage and said, hey, any chance that you could come to my studio and record a podcast with us? It's for my buddy. It's his birthday coming up, and he's like a huge fan of yours. And he messaged me back like, what day works? And I'm like,
Oh,
that's awesome, right?
Have you heard my Jerry Howarth story?
No.
No, tell it, please.
Okay, and look, I apologize because the worst is when people do one-up stories. So I'm not trying to do that because I don't think this is any cooler. It just reminded me of this. So the same way you just described how like the voice of your childhood team is I learned about baseball because the Jays were on twice a week on television.
Yeah.
So I learned baseball from Jerry Howarth and Tom Cheek, the play-by-play and color commentary for the Jays for 30 some years until Tom passed away. And then Jerry kept on for 20 more years. But I realized that when you think about it, 162 games a year, I would listen to the radio every single night. Jerry Howarth spoke more words to me than anyone on the planet other than my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And even then it would be close because he would talk for 3 straight hours and I would listen every single night for 162 days a year. And so I found out he was retiring. They announced it very suddenly because he was ill. And I pulled over and cried because he was the link to my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I listened to Jerry Howarth, I thought about me in the canoe with my dad, me on the dock, driving to the cottage. It was always me and my dad. So he was the voice of baseball to me. I learned baseball from him. And when he retired very suddenly, I was really upset.
Yeah.
And so I wrote an article called What I Learned About Leadership from Jerry Howarth. I put it on LinkedIn, put it on social media. A couple days later, I get a call and it's like, hey, Drew, Jerry Howarth. And it's so weird to hear, like, it because you just experienced it, right?
Yeah.
It's so weird to hear the voice talk about normal stuff. And he just said, it was passed on to me by my daughter who saw it. And I just wanted to say it's the nicest thing anyone's written about me since I retired. And I wanted to tell you how much I appreciated it. And we had a wonderful little chat. He hung up and I just kind of ran around the room like, oh my God, I just talked to Jerry. Get a call a couple weeks later. He says, my autobiography is coming out. Could I use it as the introduction to my autobiography?
Wow.
So the introduction to Jerry Howarth's autobiography is this article that I wrote. And when I gave it to my dad, he cried, which bugs me because when I gave him my book, he didn't. However, to talk about courage, what Jerry said, is there anything I could do for you? And I said, would you call my dad?
Yeah.
And just say hello. And he said, no. And I'm like, oh. He said, why don't you come to the game? It's going to be Vladdy's first game. This was in May of 2019, maybe.
Yeah.
Why don't you come to the game? I'll get you and your dad tickets and I'll come out and say hello. I'll surprise him. And so we get to the game. Dad's like, why are we here so early? Jerry comes out and didn't just say hi. 45 minutes of sitting and talking with my dad about Blue Jays, about Blue Jay history. It was the happiest I saw my dad in the last 3 years of his life. He was absolutely beaming. They argued Dave Steve versus Roy Halladay, which are two guys who could actually do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Until they put Dave Steve in MLB The Show, I don't know for sure. I was too young. But
we still have to play.
He did that for us. Isn't it amazing when someone cares enough to say yes to that?
Wow.
And the thing was, sometimes when you ask, what could I try that might not work, but try it in anyway? If you're afraid to do it for yourself, do it for somebody else.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's a little bit easier when you're like, hey, would you do this for my friend?
Right.
And so I don't know what's up with Jerry Howarth and the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't know why he's not on the Ring of Honor. I don't know why there hasn't been any kind of day to honor him. I'm wondering if there's, something happened when they broke up.
Yeah.
But I do know that I will hold a special place in my heart for that man for my entire life, not only because of what he brought me as a sportscaster, but because of how he treated my dad.
Yeah, and it's funny because I listened to his book prior to even hearing you speak, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the book again now. It was a huge honor. Yeah,
a huge honor to me.
That's fantastic. That would be amazing. Tim, maybe you can write the foreword to Kirk Keelback's next book.
Yeah, I'm game.
Kirk Keelback.
It was cool. It was just cool to think about what I learned from the guy.
Yeah,
like the fact that you should honor other people's accomplishments too. He was never a homer.
Yeah.
Like when another team pulled a perfect double play, Jerry told you that sometimes the best way to shine is to reflect the light of others, right? So even Joe Siddle as his replacement or as his partner, when he heard Joe Siddle had lost his son, he suggested him. He suggested a guy who'd never done it before. He could have demanded any professional after 30 some years that he got a pro to sit next to him, and he picked a brand new guy that he had to carry for a couple years. Yeah. And I think Joe's amazing now. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. The Jays have had great broadcasters like Jerry Howarth, Tom Cheek, and as much as some people make fun of Buck Martinez being a homer, because he's probably the opposite of Jerry Howarth, he's very homer. I still love, like, I want to get that alarm clock that says get up, get up, get up ball, right? When it goes off. That would be...
Hey, Dan Schulman.
And Dan Schulman,
like, how lucky are we to have Dan Schulman, right? You know what I mean?
He's with a world-class broadcaster.
Beautiful voice.
Yeah, he is.
Man, you better be when you get born with that voice.
You speak to people for a living. You have your stories. Can you tell us something that maybe people don't know about Drew Dudley, that you don't tell anybody, something secretive, nothing crazy, but something people don't know about you?
I was going to say, you want me to tell a secret that isn't scary?
Well, go with the scary one.
Know about me? Yeah, I am. I wouldn't say I don't tell people this, but there's two things. One, that I, as a hobby, create sports highlight videos. I set them to music, and so my first ever job was at a television station, and I learned how to edit, and I paid my way through college partially by creating like biography type things for people's birthdays. Like, they give me their photos, they give me some music, and I put them together. But I was just so fascinated by those highlight videos that you'd see, NFL films where they put them to music. Yeah. So I do that for fun. Also, I am such a gamer now since the pandemic. I started when I was 44 years old or whatever it was, and I am a huge gamer right now. Like, absolutely huge, to the point where I had to take a break because I got tendonitis in my thumbs. And so I don't know if that's as exciting or interesting as you'd like, but I in the last 3 years have gamed so much that I actually had to put my thumbs in a splint.
Games of choice are what?
What's that?
What are your games of choice?
Red Dead Redemption 2 saved my life during the pandemic. And I'm not saying that being facetious. It literally, I think, saved my life. And MLB The Show, and NBA 2K. So I'm a big sports game guy. I'm still trying to find that game that connects me the same way Red Dead. But a lot of games like Red Dead, the open world stuff, is either super fantasy and really complicated. Like, I can't figure out spells, okay? I just want to shoot people with a 6-shooter.
Have you done Last of Us?
And then when you play things... What's that?
Last of Us?
I haven't done The Last of Us because I'm freaked out by jump scares because I have PTSD. Okay. Maybe people don't know that, actually. I have PTSD. Okay. So if there's a jump scare, it's very hard on me. Same thing with like a car backfiring or a horn suddenly. Without being able to control it, I freak out a little bit, and my adrenaline is so high that I'm actually nauseous for a few minutes afterwards if there's a sudden loud noise around me. So, I mean, that's a more personal one than like, I'm a gamer and I love making sports videos. But
do you have a sports videos channel on YouTube?
I do not. I don't. Because it would be basically, creating sports videos is copyright infringement 101. Yeah. Right. So here is a song that I'm not allowed to use, set over clips that I'm not allowed to use. So I kind of just do it. I kind of just do it internally as a way of chilling out. Right. You know what I mean? I could put it on YouTube, but I'd be paying somebody.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Right.
We don't.
You put stuff all the time.
So what's really funny, Drew, is I honestly also make highlight videos. And it's funny that you were saying it, because I'm thinking to myself, like, do I tell them that I also do it? Because I don't want to seem like I'm trying to just, be like you or anything like that. But I have them on my YouTube channel. I don't pay anything.
I will go check those out, man.
They get copyright they get copyrighted. So the author of the music gets to put ads on it.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
So, and then I always attribute like where the video's from, like Sportsnet, TSN, whatever the video comes from. So I've done a few Jays ones, Winnipeg Jets, and Blue Bombers, and I always do them, and I'll send them over to some of the players and stuff like that to check out. And it's always cool to get that. I'm a person, for the 5 love languages, I'm a person that likes to hear compliments and like that. Like, my love language is words of affirmation. So when
my love language is pizza.
Well, pizza is probably a close second. and yeah, so like when I do that and I send it out, I do it because I'm like looking obviously for words of affirmation. That's how I like to.
That was a very good question, Greg.
That was a question?
That was a very good question. At point.
Yeah, see, but sarcasm, I get.
Someone once told me my love language is. They said my love language is Jennifer Lawrence, and I was like, yeah,
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson, yeah.
Was it? Is it Scarlett? Your love language is Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Since I got him Kurt Keelback for his birthday,
I'm working on Scarlett Johansson.
I would like to return as co-host for that particular. Speaking of people with a great voice, though, right? So,
I know, right?
It's the Greg and Drew show.
It's just Greg and Drew and Scarlett.
Oh, Tim's
Drew
gone.
and Scarlett.
I want to go and delve a little bit about mental health awareness. You talk a bit about your mental health journey. Could you touch on that a little bit, and then maybe talk about the prevalence in our day and age? It seems like mental health is such a prevalent issue. Is it worse? Are there some things in society, whether social media, whether diet, that are making some of these concerns worse? What are your opinions on it? Maybe citing a couple examples from your life.
Yeah, I think one of the analogies I heard recently, someone told me, was that we noticed that there are more left-handed people after 1950, right? And so, oh my God, why have the number of left-handed people exploded, or people who write with their left hand exploded after 1950? Well, it's because we stopped punishing people who wrote with their left hand and making them write with their right. So it's not as if left-handed people didn't exist before. It's just that society didn't create a place where they were allowed to be. So is there more mental illness than there used to be before? I do not know. I honestly don't. Yeah. I think that there probably is different kinds of mental illness now, in terms of, I think social media has led to completely different forms of internalizing different types of pathologies. But I myself am bipolar. I have bipolar 2, which I'm told is in remission. I didn't know that was a thing. Someone out there might be like, there's no such thing as remission for bipolar, but that's what the doctor wrote on my sheet. So I kind of went, oh, okay. I am bipolar. I battled with my weight. I am an alcoholic. And I just discovered that I have ADHD. And what's interesting is when I was diagnosed with ADHD, it was very interesting how I reacted to that, because I've lived my life very out loud in terms of telling people that I'm an alcoholic, in terms of sharing things about my weight loss journey, in terms of sharing things about the bipolar. But I all of a sudden thought to myself, you can't talk about this.
Yeah.
Because people will find you, I don't know if they'll find you inspiring, but they will feel that you are resilient if you have 2. But if you come up with a 3rd, now you're just being self-indulgent. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to talk about ADHD because people are going to roll their eyes and be like, Drew's got another one. How do you think I feel? But that to me says a lot about the stigma still exists.
Yeah.
And the idea that someone told me once to stop using the death of my girlfriend as a crutch. And so even though people are like, oh, we're being supportive, #Bell Let's Talk. My opinion is that people want to support mental illness awareness, but they never want to deal with the negative aspects of a mentally ill person.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I want to write #Bell Let's Talk, but when my friend is canceling on me constantly, I get pissed at them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I know they're depressed, but, right? So I think what happened was, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I thought, I'm not allowed to have another one, because people are going to roll their eyes and assume that I'm trying to get attention.
Yeah.
And so it still exists, my friend.
Yeah.
And what really gets me, like, I'm so hesitant to say this, but Kanye, right? We all want to support mental illness awareness and #Bell Let's Talk, but Kanye's sick.
Yeah.
And yet he got destroyed because he said awful stuff. Like,
yeah.
I want to be very clear to anybody listening. I in no way, shape, or form condone any of the crap that Kanye pulled.
Yeah.
But Kanye is sick, and we're not allowed to call somebody evil if we know they're mentally ill. The problem with Kanye is he's so wealthy and powerful that nobody around him, everyone around him, is dependent on him.
Yeah.
So no one will tell him the truth, right?
Yeah.
And those who tried to had to leave. But we're not allowed to say, I support mental health awareness and I support people with mental illness, and then attack people when their symptoms overwhelm them.
Yeah.
And so to me, when you talk about mental illness in today's society, we've got to do more than just say, oh yeah, we know more about it. We have to do a better job understanding what the symptoms of these diseases are, and not holding people who have mental illness at the same standard of people who don't, in terms of, we have to have more patience. I shouldn't say we have to hold to different standards. We have to be more patient.
Yeah.
We really do. It's one of my struggles with our current president, or our former president. He's not current. Down in the States, is that man
Depends on who you talk to.
Trump.
Well, he's still there.
It depends on who you talk to.
He's still
if
president.
He's former.
Look, oh my God, he's convinced me. But Trump is mentally ill. Trump has a terrible narcissistic disorder. He's not well. And, and it's very hard for me to say, I hope he gets the help he needs, because the symptoms of his illness are disastrous for many, many people.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile? I haven't figured out how to reconcile that yet either. So it's really interesting when you ask me that question, because it really is something that confuses me a lot. My own feelings, because I know that me at my worst, because of my bipolar, would have needed a lot more patience and forgiveness than I see people giving individuals with bipolar.
Yeah.
Like, we use it as an excuse to say that's why they were a murderer.
Right.
And every time somebody shoots up something and then it comes out they were bipolar, I sit there and wonder, is this me too?
Yeah.
Like, there but for the grace of God go I, right? And so it's very, very hard to advocate for mental illness, knowing that you also have to advocate for terrible behavior.
Yeah.
Not advocate for terrible behavior, but you have to be more understanding.
Well, excuse it versus understanding it. They're two different things. And going back to
that's great.
And going back to the Kanye example, we have a bigger issue too, in that celebrities, whoever they might be, aren't human beings on social media. Like, the terrible things people say about people just because, they're famous is horrible. Just like you talked about earlier, you'd hate to be famous. I would hate to be too. Like they are human beings, but people call them the worst things on the face of the planet on social media, and they think they can because they have money, fame, wealth, whatever it is. If I could just go kind of on that vein, but a little bit off of it, going back to the AA example, where today is day one, and I think that's where you kind of got the day one mentality, where this is the next day. The next day is day one. Is there a danger, and I know we talk about this in mental health as well, but is there a danger when you always say today is day one, that there is never an end goal, that we don't completely get cured? I am an alcoholic every day of the rest of my life. I have someone with bipolar for every day for the rest of my life, and there is no quote unquote cure ever in the future. Is there a danger in that kind of mentality?
Yeah, I think if you adopted it, it would be. When I talk about day one, and what they tell us when we talk about day one in recovery, is it's related to that one specific non-negotiable behavior. So your day one concept is not that you don't plan for the future. It's the idea that every day in the future is going to have these same non-negotiable behaviors, which could only be 5% of your day, right?
Yep. So
95% of your day can be spent long-term planning. It can be spent moving towards larger goals. It's about identifying, let's say I think here's a great example, actually. Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Steve Martin decided that if he picked up a banjo and played it for 1 extra minute every day, in 20 years, he'd be an amazing banjo player. So he did the non-negotiable day one behavior. This is my first day playing the banjo. But what he did is that he did it knowing that the long-term results would take him somewhere. So what you do is you look at the end goal you're hoping for. You identify what behavior, if I did it every day, would get me there. And then that becomes your day one behavior, if that makes any sense at all. So day one is about individual special behaviors that are designed to take you somewhere into the future.
That's very cool.
It's a great answer.
Yeah. He studied it. This is his thing. He knows this stuff.
That.
I
mean, I appreciate you guys taking a look at really reading the book too. Yeah. That's awesome.
And I hope you don't mind my pushing back. Sometimes people have conversation. It's very rah. I just want to push back a little bit. I think it just makes for a better conversation. So I hope you don't mind if I'm asking you personal questions or trying to pushing up against the subject.
So generally in our conversations, as you've heard during the podcast, me and Tim will bring up a subject that we like, like whether it's introvert, extrovert, the 5 love languages. We brought up the Mandela effect. I don't know if you watched that one, but that one was very popular. And Tim always has to have he has to have the answer that's more like realistic. And I have to kind of, and that's why we brought on a guy to talk about the moon landing, was because I couldn't bring myself to be as outgoing as this guy was about the moon landing thing. So, that's why we have these conversations, is to create conversation, right? And I think creating the conversation, it makes you think, like, is there going to be, Drew, a day 2 book? Is there going to be a book that is like, this is day 2? And at the start of the book, your first line should be no.
Yeah.
Right?
That is the book.
You're the sixth person. You're the sixth person to ask me when the next book is coming out in the last 3 days. So maybe this is the universe talking to me. And my man, don't ever apologize for pushing back. I learn the most when people push back. Like, one of the things that I tell young speakers is that when you make a point on stage, I want you to immediately think about the most cynical person you can. Not saying you're the most cynical person, man, but what they like, what problem they would have with what you just said, because then you can identify if it actually is a problem and how you can plug that hole, right? Because if you're going to think and make arguments, you need to then say, what would the person who hates me the most say in response to this?
Yep.
And I think that strengthens your argument. So push, because I honestly think if you're a smart person that you want to grow, the thing that you should spend your whole life doing is trying to disprove everything that you believe. Everything you believe, try to find a way to disprove it.
Yep.
And what will happen is you will end up believing fewer things, but the things in which you believe, you can believe in strongly.
Conviction.
And I think that what happens the same way when you get older, you have fewer friends, but they're tighter, aren't they? And so I love getting pushed back on it. Like, sometimes I get, because honestly, if I get caught flat-footed, good.
Yeah.
Like, I have to go back and accommodate for that possibility, right? Like, even you guys talking about the courage thing, I had never considered the possibility that what I was actually doing, or for instance, I had never considered the fact that when I do the Lollipop story, I was, and it's hard if you haven't heard it, I'm sorry, everybody, but what I did in that moment was make a girl very uncomfortable. And it was really heteronormative. And it took me 20 years to realize that this story that I'd so proudly told probably had women in the audience over the course of those 20 years being like, not cool, dude. Not cool. Like, the story's good and it worked out well, but it was unbelievably disrespectful of that young woman's personal space, and it was wildly heteronormative. And now I realize that. So I like it when people point out that. The challenge is when people point out a flaw when you point out a flaw in someone's reasoning without pointing out a flaw in their character.
Yeah.
And the way that was raised to me was so well done, because that person cared about making my speech better. And instead of saying, you screwed this up, they came up and said, have you ever considered how this makes people feel?
Yeah.
And the fact is, I hadn't. And the phrase, have you ever considered, is a really good question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, different points of view, right?
There's a lot of times that, like, obviously during 2020, that a lot of people didn't use that phrase, have you considered? They just instantly went into, this is how it is, right? Like, or this is how you made me feel, as opposed to have you considered how this would make you feel. So that's
being really said, we landed on the moon.
Yes,
that's correct.
And they're going back.
That being said, we landed on the moon.
And we're going back.
Like, we can all have different opinions, but there are facts.
So you can all have very different incorrect opinions.
So you can use this. I'm not going to ask for any royalties, but on your second book, you can call it, is it day 2? ? And then the first line of it is, no, it will always be day 1. And then you can go on from there and tell all these stories that you have that have come out of this book. I'm sure that you've got a lot of stories like that one you just said about the Lollipop moment, right? Like, where you can reflect on some of the things that you told a story about, and people asked you questions on it. I would read it. So if you're gonna do it, 6 people in 3 days means that it should be made.
You want to? You guys want to help me with my next book? Because I got a question for you. So
sure, absolutely.
So one of my favorite questions is to ask people what is their least favorite cultural cliche. And what I mean by that is phrases like life is short, fake it till you make it, laughter is the best medicine. I have a lot of problems with all kinds of these. And so I'm thinking of writing a book called Cultural Cliches and the People Who Hate Them, or something to that effect. That's a terrible title.
Yep.
But what's your least favorite cultural cliche? One of those things that everyone says as if it's some pearl of wisdom. And when you really pick it apart, it's really bad advice.
I've got one right away.
I got one right away too.
Okay, I'm gonna go first. It is what it is.
Oh, why don't you just blow a puff of air in my face? That is how useful that phrase is.
Yeah, saying nothing.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, what a pointless. You just didn't know what to say, so you just said something.
You had
just
no answer.
It's the same thing.
No,
I agree with you completely.
I think I can explain that one. It is what it is when someone gets upset about something that they can't control anyway.
No.
So they say it is what it is to say, just relax, just let it slide off. That's another way of saying that.
I had a boss back when I was younger that would always, whenever I would come up to him with a solution to a problem, instead of fixing the problem, he would say, it is what it is.
Well, that's different. That's completely different.
That frustrated me beyond belief, because I knew that there was more to the solution than it is what it is. So that one bothers me.
Mine is it's better than nothing.
Why do you hate that one?
Because it's like nothing is a viable alternative. It's not.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I've never liked that
Nothing is not a viable alternative.
Yeah, well, why do we compare the two?
I like that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a book that I'm kind of interested in exploring. Someone told me that laughter is the best medicine drives them nuts because they're like, man, sometimes the best medicine is a huge glass of wine, a hot bath, and a good cry.
So going back to Norm Macdonald, have you heard his laughter is the best medicine? His laughter is the best medicine unless you're a diabetic. Then insulin usually works much better.
It's true. Like, but if anyone's listening and they've got some, like, put it in the comments.
That's awesome.
Like, I'm learning how to do a podcast, right? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, put it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Culture cliche is like life is short. It is not. It's the longest thing you will ever do.
Another one is like, share, and subscribe. Like, what happens if I don't? Nothing.
Why I know that? Because another thing you might not know about me is I can't get enough of reaction videos.
Yeah.
Like just random people watching music videos and commenting on them. And honestly, like watching wrestling bloggers watch Edge's return or CM Punk's return makes me so happy. I don't know why I love reaction videos, but I watch them and they just lose their mind. If you ever want to see pure joy, just watch the reaction video of Edge returning, I think, at the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole bunch of wrestling marks freaking out like it's the greatest moment of their life. And I just love watching pure joy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, I forget who said it recently, but maybe it was David Letterman. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is awesome. It is awesome. It is a real life Disney movie. This is the best. How can anyone hate this? All right. I just love it. I want more Travis and I want more Taylor. I want them together. I want a whole other channel where it's just her watching the game. This is love and it's beautiful and wonderful. Go team, go.
Don't you know
Stop complaining.
Don't you know the NFL and Taylor Swift are just fabricating the whole thing? Didn't you know that?
Yeah, because I heard that the Super Bowl has been rigged.
Yeah.
We talked about that too.
The Super Bowl has been rigged against the California city with the much higher population.
Yes.
And yeah, definitely they've rigged it against the city where that would be better for the NFL.
Yeah,
yes, of course.
Kansas City, which is like a working man's city, which is have you ever been to the stadium at Kauffman or Arrowhead?
No, I have not. I hear they're beautiful though.
Kauffman is such an old stadium, so like the seats are just falling apart, but it's amazing in there. Like, me and my son sat front row in the outfield because the waterfalls were right behind us. Like, I could turn around and watch the waterfalls, and then I could turn around and I could see like George Springer standing right in front of me, and I'm like, man, baseball is romantic. And I just like Kauffman Stadium. If you get a chance to get there, I highly recommend it because it's just, I don't know, something about it.
A little bit of barbecue and baseball. baseball.
Yeah, a little bit of barbecue and baseball. Don't stay around there though, because the two hotels that are right by the stadium are not worth staying at. Pay the extra $20 a night to stay somewhere else.
You folks, this podcast just helps with everything, doesn't it?
Well,
you got places to stay. You got got TripAdvisor on one side. You got people talking about like you got to think of it differently. Is the moon landing real? Like there's a lot of in-depth stuff going on.
If you want to go on a baseball trip and go and see how many games we're seeing? We're seeing five teams. If you ever want to know how to go and see 5 games, including a season opener for like under $500 in Florida, you let us know. We'll tell you exactly how to do it.
We leave in 41
days. You had
days.
me until in Florida.
Well, it's in Tampa. We have to go see the Jays.
That's true, and I'm thinking of going to Dunedin to see it because I've only done spring training once and it was a blast. But
if you're down there at the end of March, let us know. That's when we'll be down there.
I just love how wide ranging this podcast is. Like we are all over. Can we talk about abortion and gun rights next? Like, I'm kidding. By the way, I saw you perk up a little bit there. I'm like, no.
Maybe
cause all kinds of problems.
Maybe on the next episode of Drew Talks, we'll do that.
Why do bad things happen to good people? Go.
How about on the next episode of someone other than Drew talking about this?
Yeah, there's some topics that we probably won't touch.
Oh, maybe not.
So I got one last question for you, Drew, and then if you want to go, you can. If you want to keep talking, we can keep talking. But I need to ask this question, and the reason why I need to ask this question is because I sat through your keynote, loved every moment of it, but there was one thing that you said in the keynote that drove me absolutely crazy. And the question you asked everybody in the audience was, "Why do you matter?"
Yes.
And so I want to know, Drew, why do you matter?
I got caught flat-footed on this one once, and I can't believe I did. So I've been prepped for it ever since.
Oh, okay.
I matter because I plan to matter. And I don't know exactly how each day that I'm going to matter, but I have a plan to matter each day. I've got these questions. I've got what I call the leadership test, which is a series of 6 questions. I try to get 3 every single day. And because I plan to matter, I do. And I think that we hope to matter, we hope to lead, hope to make a difference. Hope is awesome. Hope's a powerful force.
Yep.
It's a terrible strategy.
Yep.
And so if you want to matter, lead, and make a difference, you got to plan to do it. And so every single day I plan to matter.
That's awesome. I thought I could catch you on that one. Thought it's the end of the day.
Someone did once. A student caught me on that before, and it was what you do is you just stroke your beard and go, what do you think?
Yeah,
that's why I grew this thing, so I could be like,
I have to use the bathroom.
Question. Why don't you go home and think about it, and we'll come back and see after I get a chance to check with my friends what they think.
I need a recess, Your Honor.
I actually had that question near the top of our questions, and I'm like, no. I'm going to ask it at the end. At the end of the day,
you're going to sandbag me when I'm tired.
The light behind you has gone away, and you're starting to lose that energy.
Oh, it's dark, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you because I want to get that genuine answer. And I think that's still, even though you said you know the answer to that question, it's still a genuine answer because it's something that you're living on a daily basis.
Thank you. It was important to me that whatever answer I gave when people started asking me that actually was real. So it took me a while to get there, and I still struggle with it sometimes, I'll be honest. But yeah. But man, don't you have like a lightning round that you guys always do? And I love the lightning round. So I don't want to miss out on my chance to do that.
You want to do this or that?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
If you had it planned, if you have other questions, I want to do the questions. But
do you have more questions, Tim, or did you cross off all? I don't know if you know this, but Tim literally just scratches. I don't think you can see it, but he just scratches his questions off when he's done them because he's a professional. I was
wondering what he was doing. I thought he was just like, that one sucked.
No, I have to pick up for my wife. I got to pick up oranges. I'm making a list here of what I have to pick up at the grocery store.
And I had, I'll put it on this camera here. I don't know if they can see it. I can't tell if it's focused. But hope versus strategy was one of my questions, and you actually just touched on it right there. Of hope being great, but it being a horrible way of living. So,
how about I ask a generational question?
Generational.
Yeah. So this is something that's has fascinated me just because of my past and my dad and my grandpa and all that stuff. So people tend to repeat family origin cycles. What their dad does is brought down to the son, et cetera, and it keeps going down through generations. Discuss the difficulties in breaking financial, educational, mindset cycles when that's all you know. How do you make a change when you're in your adult years, when your formative years have been controlled and adapted with those mindsets?
Wow. I may give you the three most powerful words in leadership if I could. I don't know. I honestly, I just think that if you don't say I don't know, you will demonstrate it at some point. That's such a hard question, my friend. And I may just openly acknowledge that I don't know because it's something that I'm still struggling with because of just what you said, like being entrenched. If you've never thought of it any other way, the human brain doesn't challenge what it's always known as truth, right? And so as a result, it's really hard to break out of those. And a lot of the things from drinking, it's a family thing. Yeah. From the drinking to the bipolar, everything, all of that was sort of passed down from some area of my family. I haven't figured out how to break the cycle yet, except to realize that you are not beholden to your family for everything. You know what I mean? You should always love and respect your family, but not everything they give you is good.
Yep.
And to be able to look at other families, to go out and look at other people, to surround yourself with people who have a healthy family life, I think is unbelievably important. Like I'll go away to like a Thanksgiving dinner or something and just be like, what is this? Oh, it's love. It really catches you by surprise. But I don't know if I have a good answer for you, man. I don't want to disappoint, but I've kind of learned along the way that it's a better idea to acknowledge when you don't know than to try to come up with something. That's really hard. And I'll tell you what's going to happen is that we're going to stop this podcast. I'm going to go into the other room and I'm going to come up with an answer that I'm so bloody proud of and miss the opportunity. But I got to say, I don't know, man.
Is that something you were saying that about the why does it matter? Why do you matter question that you wanted to come up with something? Is that something that your personality has really driven you to do, is to, if you don't know the answer to something, to learn it and to practice it until it becomes something that is ingrained in you?
For me, it is a gift that people listen to you, right? Like I get people's attention. That's the only thing you can't get back. Like money is the one commodity you can always find a way to get, but time and attention isn't. So one of the things I try to do to be a good speaker is to never take for granted that I deserve people's attention. And what that means is every time I have an opportunity to come up with 2 or 3 minutes worth listening to, I try to find it. If that makes any sense. Like everyone listening here has given an hour of their lives to you two and to me.
Yep.
And so everything I try to say, I keep thinking to myself, could this be at all useful or interesting to the other people? So in a question like, why do you matter? The answer is an opportunity to captivate people for a couple of minutes. And my job, to quote Mr. Sorkin again, is to captivate the audience for however long I've demanded their attention. And so the reason my personality wants me to think about that a little bit more is because it might be 3 minutes of a good story. And 3 minutes of a good story makes someone's life a little bit better.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, the difficulty I acknowledge with the question I just asked is that everybody is different. So how I do that in my life, how you do that in your life, and how Greg does it is vastly different. So for me to expect that you're going to tell everybody how to break cycles is completely illogical. So, but it's always been a topic that's interested me because, like you say in the book, like some people are natural leaders. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's not what you say in the book, but some people are just more naturally prone to be positive, to have attributes of leadership, et cetera, outgoing personality, whatever it is. And for some people, it's just harder. And for those people that it's harder, how they deal with that is very individual, right?
Yeah.
So
I also think that the book was written for people who find it harder.
Right.
Like I really was like, if you find it hard to see yourself as a leader because you're an introvert, or you don't like being the center of attention, or any of those reasons, I want people to realize that they are leaders.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. Everybody's so incredibly different, and it's always a family thing, eh?
Yeah.
Like it's so like right now I'm dealing with my mother's progressing dementia, and we always had a difficult relationship, and now she's a totally different person. And to watch any person go through that, no matter how tense and contentious your relationship has been, will open your eyes to the humanity of other people.
Yeah.
Like watching people lose their dignity makes you realize how unbelievably important human dignity is.
Yeah. Now you shared a personal example, and I thank you for that. I mean, for me, in the past couple of months, my dad passed away, and the same thing. We had a very distant, contentious kind of a relationship, or non-existent at some points. And so I was there with him 2 months ago, and just basically he was dying, and I was standing in front of him as an individual who was my dad was passing away. And it's crazy how emotional it is no matter how close you are to somebody. But you're right. Everyone's
when my dad passed away, we talked about How I Met Your Mother. Just as an aside to go back, a weird thing to go back to, I know, and I apologize for segueing that, is when one of the characters' fathers dies, his immediate comment that cut right to the heart of me when I lost my dad was, "I'm not ready for this."
Yeah, Marshall.
And just that comment, "I'm not ready for this." I started to realize that was the exact same thing that happened. And my dad died when I was 44, and it was still like, "I'm not ready for this." And for what it's worth, for anyone who may have lost someone recently, when my girlfriend passed away, someone told me this really cool analogy about pain is like one of those rubber dodgeballs back in school, and it goes into a box, and the box has a button on the inside of it that every time the ball moves, it hits the button, and the button causes pain and anger and grief. And what happens is it always is in the box, but the ball gets smaller. But it always is a part of your life. If the box is your life and the ball is your grief, the ball shrinks, but it still bounces around, right? And every now and then it's going to hit the button. And they said, just be aware that when it starts, every little jiggle, every single thing you do in your life, it's going to hit the button. Yeah. But the ball gets smaller, but it never leaves the box. It just might be such a small ball that it hardly ever hits the button, but it never leaves. And there was something so... I don't know why, but there was something so comforting about that, along with the phrase, grief is just love coming face to face with its oldest enemy.
Wow.
Is it like, I heard that on a Moth podcast, and it just blew my mind. Yeah. Grief is just love coming face to face with its oldest enemy. And wow, we just really took a left-hand turn there, didn't we? Somehow we got How I Met Your Mother and that into the same conversation. You guys have an amazing podcast.
the How I Met Your Mother thing, every single time I see that episode, it's super emotional for me. I haven't lost my father, so I don't know what that is like. But every single time I see that episode, I call my dad.
Really?
I don't know what it is about that episode. So just a backstory about my father is he had cancer a few years ago. I guess probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And the doctors, and he never told us this, but when the doctors came in when he had his diagnosis, they told him to get his stuff in order. Right? So he never told us this until after. And he's like, now like cancer free, and like he does do his checkups and all that kind of stuff, but like it just, and then last year actually he had a heart attack, and he had a heart attack on the way, like I was just at the home, my mom gave me a call, hey, your dad's on the way to hospital because he had a heart attack. And in my mind, that How I Met Your Mother episode hits me, you know what I mean? Because like you think to yourself, no, this, I'm not ready for this. Just like he said in that episode. And I'm like, man, every time I see that episode, and I'll probably do it right after we talk today, I'll give him a call again, right? Because I actually get to see him tomorrow. They're flying back from Florida. So by the time this airs, they'll already have been back and everything like that. But yeah, a little emotional.
Everybody, call your parents.
Call your parents. Tell them you love them, right?
It hits you hard. I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
The only sadder moment was Buffy saying "mommy," and there's an episode, the best episode I've ever seen on television about grief. Is called "The Body" in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
It is a magnificent. It is one of the most perfect 60 minutes of television I've ever seen, and it deals with grief in a way that is more real and more emotionally moving. And it's weird that it's from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But if you've never watched it, it's hard to get sort of the same emotional connection if you haven't watched the whole series.
Yeah,
but it's pretty remarkable. It really, really is. Can we talk about something happy?
We can.
We're going on to the lightning round in a second.
Okay, but he wants to talk about something happy, so we got to segue.
That's why the lightning.
You're in Toronto, correct?
I am.
And you're a sports fan, correct?
I am.
In what decade will the Toronto Maple Leafs win a Stanley Cup?
This one.
This one. Okay.
This one. Put it down. Stick it in stone. Stick it on the wall.
This year, next year, another year? How many years?
That I can't tell you. That I cannot tell you.
It'll happen this decade, though.
They will win it this decade.
That's
what do we got? 2024?
Yeah, so you got 6 years.
That's a strong convicted answer to something that I don't think any NHL team in Canada can say, that they're going to win this decade.
The Oilers are pretty good.
But they weren't.
The Oilers, I didn't think they were going to lose.
It's the Dallas Oilers or the Edmonton Cowboys. They look good in the regular season, but just wait. Dak Prescott's going to play. Dak Prescott and all the Edmonton Oilers are going to crash and burn.
Oh man, yeah.
That's awesome.
The Oilers have the most amount of number 1 draft picks that have never won anything in their life.
Yeah.
Hey, look, you have the best player in the world. You always have a chance.
Yeah, and I guess you can say Connor McDavid. Bedard's going to come up and he's going to give him a run for his money, I think, in a few years.
Yes.
Unproven.
I think he's going to, but yeah. And then you guys have Austin Matthews. I do miss, though, Drew, your brick background.
Yes. I that was fake. So I stopped wanting to, because it was really hard to keep it ironed.
No,
to be completely honest.
Well, you had a brick background, right?
It folded.
You had an original brick background, and then you.
I did years ago, that I actually changed to a fake one.
Yeah,
but yeah, I like the new one.
This looks good.
Down, it looked beautiful in here. I actually looked at the screen and was like, "Damn, we look good."
We got to do this at this
Second time I've done that this podcast.
When are you coming to town to watch Bull Durham in Greg's basement?
Oh my God, that would be a really good time. I have nothing planned officially to head to your town, but it almost always happens a couple times a year.
If you're in Winnipeg,
so we will rock that.
Because your love language is pizza, I will take you to the best pizza in town, Little Pizza Heaven.
Ooh.
Tim's not a pizza guy. His love language is not pizza.
I eat no carbs, no sugars.
He doesn't eat carbs. But this place, Little Pizza Heaven, makes their pizza with garlic bread crust.
Done.
And it's like a hand tossed thin. So good with a lot of meat, and it's so good.
Let's go back to grief for just a second. I just want to say this.
Yep.
Yesterday I discovered that my favorite pizza place growing up, the place that your dad takes you to after ball games and everything, that it closed.
Oh.
And then I just wanted to share that with everyone so that I could feel some emotional support, because it was, I'm not going to lie. It was, at first you're like, oh no, it closed. And then you actually think about it and you realize, damn, that place was a big part of my life.
Yeah.
What
and
place?
they closed her down. The Pizza Factory in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. Rest in peace, my friend. You made some great pies.
Oh man. Yeah, when you lose a good pizza place, that's
it's funny. We talked about the emotional connection with food and emotions a couple episodes ago, or last episode or something like that. And we talked about my friend of mine, he would be, when he had cheat days, because he has a diet, whatever, and then he always has a cheat meal. And he says, well, I asked him, well, what do you cheat with? Is it like spaghetti? Is it pizza? He says, always pizza. And I said, well, why is it pizza? Why isn't it something else? And he said every second Friday, every Friday, his family would have pizza nights. And that was his emotional connection to comfort, right? So whenever anyway, I thought that was interesting. So yeah.
That's cool.
I never thought about but I know that I struggle with my weight big time. And it's because when I need comfort, I go to food, because I can't go to booze anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, the McRib's back, eh?
Yeah, I saw that. I managed to resist it thus far.
I've had two.
But I'm going to have a McRib.
I've had two.
If you had McRibs available all year, you wouldn't think twice. You would never have a McRib. But it's like the Shamrock Shake. It's only available a month, so we have to have it.
And I get the Shamrock Shake.
Anything pumpkin. Like, who's going to drink anything pumpkin? Pumpkin is terrible. It's terrible.
Horrible.
Let's all just say it out loud.
It's horrible.
But pumpkin isn't actually pumpkin. It's just spice. It's not actually drinking a pumpkin.
Don't care. It's vile.
Agreed.
But get a McRib. They've been gone for like 11 years. My son.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my son.
Bring back pizza.
My son is McDonald's pizza was fantastic. Apparently they have it in Europe.
Oh no! Bring back the
anyway. You were talking about your son, man. Let's talk about when you're talking about your kids.
So my son, he turns 23 in a couple of weeks, and he goes to me. He sends the thing because he knew that I love the McRib. He sends it to me. He goes, "Hey, the McRib's coming back," and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like, I'm excited." He's like, "I've never had one," and I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what do you mean you've never had one?" He's like, "Well, I was like 10 when they came out, and I probably had like burgers back then, right? Like, you don't buy your 10-year-old son a Big Mac, you get them a Happy Meal." So yeah, like I think it's been 11 or 12 years that it's been gone. And so podcast taping 2 weeks ago, when the McRib came out on the Tuesday, we record on Wednesdays usually, and he came to the recording because he does the sound and everything for us, and he brought me a McRib. And me and him cheersed our McRibs. Tim was there, took a picture of it, cheersed our McRibs, and he had his first McRib with me, and it was fantastic.
I'm gonna order one right now on Uber Eats as we talk. There it is. It's even the ad for McDonald's on Uber Eats. It's the McRib. So
can you do
as we finish off, I'm going to order one.
Can you do us a favor? When the McRib arrives, can you take a video on your phone that as you're having the McRib, but a shout out to the Greg and Tim podcast while you're having the McRib?
I think I can definitely make that happen.
That would be fantastic.
That would be awesome.
Do this. All right. Well, I'll do that after, so I won't be ordering because now I have to prove it anyway.
Now you're going to have to order it. Okay, so we're going to do the lightning round real quick here, because I know we've taken up a ton of your time here, and we're super appreciative of all the time that you're taking here.
Absolutely. It's been great.
Because
my friends, I'll tell you something. You're the ones who have to edit this mess, so I thank you for the extra work you're about to put in.
Hey, the editing is the fun part for me. I just finished editing the one where Tim got surprised by Kirk Heelback, and the look on his face when his eyeballs opened up and saw Kirk Heelback walk through that door was priceless. And I laughed probably all day because...
What's crazy is you knew what he looked like.
Oh, we know.
Yeah,
we know most times commentators, you wouldn't necessarily know what they look like. Right?
He's super famous in Winnipeg, and when he walked through the door, because I gave Tim the book for his birthday, and so Tim opened the book. We talked about Kurt Keelback, and Tim told some stories about why he loves him and all that kind of stuff. And literally, a knock on the door happens, and he walks through the door, and Tim's staring at him as he walks through the door, and he can't say anything. And the guy, he reaches out, shakes Tim's hand and goes, "Hi, I'm Kurt." And Tim just keeps looking at him and shaking his hand, and he goes, "And you are?"
I said, "I don't know. What's my name?"
Right now, I'm not present. I don't even know.
So
what I'm worried about is that I'm going to eat the damn McRib and just
love it
all down the front of this, and I just got this. So if I wreck this suit, Tim will pay for the dry cleaning. Just to make sure that you guys have some cool footage, I'm sending you the bill.
Tim will take care of it.
We'll take care of it, yeah.
Yeah, just bring it to Winnipeg.
Oh, really? I'm just going to pour it down.
Just pour it all.
Well, you got to come get your cup when you come here too, right?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, here's the lightning round. We're going to go in the lightning round, and then we're going to close her out here. Are you ready?
I'll mark right or wrong.
I'm ready. How does it work?
We're going to go this or that. You have to pick one or the other. You can't explain why this or that, or you can just say which one you pick.
All right, fire away, my friend.
Here we go. New York style or Chicago style pizza?
Chicago style pizza is not pizza, New York.
New York, okay.
It's just cold marinara soup.
The deep dish pizza, you don't like it?
Well, that's what he said.
Nope.
No? Okay.
No. It's just marinara soup.
This one has been 50-50 so far. Android or Apple?
Oh, Apple.
There we go.
Wrong. Okay.
He wrote wrong. Tim wrote wrong. I agree with you. I know you've lived in both these places. So Toronto or Vancouver?
Toronto.
Yeah.
I love Vancouver. It's beautiful, but it's not as warm as, like, I find it's not as welcoming. It's kind of a cold city in terms of personality, but I love it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Public speaking or going to a baseball game?
Public speaking.
Oh,
Believe it or
really?
not. I never feel more alive, and I never feel safer than when I'm giving a speech.
Wow. I really honestly thought that you were going to say baseball game.
No, I absolutely. Giving speeches is how I enter the world.
Yeah.
It's the most marvelous, extraordinary thing.
That's fantastic.
I'm so lucky.
European or Caribbean vacation?
Caribbean, actually. I wouldn't have said that before last week, but I had an extraordinary experience last week. So
Yes.
Caribbean. Can't wait to go back.
That's fantastic. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
That's the right answer. Yeah.
There's no need for expanding on that.
That's right. Reading a book or Netflix?
Oh,
It's net like
Yeah,
I know I should say read a book, but who we kidding? It's Netflix. Like,
read your book or Netflix. No.
oh God, Netflix.
When-
Oh, you mean somebody else? By all means, if you're somebody else, you should read my book. What you should actually do is get my book on audiobook, go out for a nice long walk, listen to my book, go home and watch Netflix, and order pizza, maybe a McRib. Can you get pizza with McRib on it?
Yeah, you can. Just put them
Oh,
on
that
top
would
of
be
each other.
fantastic.
Just order
How-
one and then the other one.
I just made the world a better place. You can put donair on pizza, so why not?
I listened to your book once while doing the elliptical back in 2020. Yeah, 2020, because that's when I heard you speak. So I got the book and listened to it once on the elliptical. The second time I listened to your book was in the hot tub. So both times were very awkward and weird. But I thought I'd share it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what being in a hot tub with me is like.
I listen to books in the hot tub every morning. So
That's a TV show. In the hot tub with Drew.
hot tub with Drew. He's not buying it. I can see it on his face.
I can see HBO passing on that right now.
We're gonna go back to the 90s here. Alanis Morissette or Pearl Jam?
Alanis Morissette. No explanation.
Wow.
Like, they're both growly, nasty voices, but
Yeah,
I'm going to go with. I was so in love with Alanis Morissette when I was a teenager. I just can't help it.
Yeah. And the whole Dave Coulier thing has kind of come out to be true now. So that's kind of funny.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he admitted on a show that he heard the song when it came out, and he's like, "Oh no." He's like that's about
Well,
me.
I'm just going to have to argue because I'm on a show now and I'm going to claim it's about me.
Yeah.
The song?
Yeah.
He just wanted to cut it out.
That's right. What's the Rocky and Bullwinkle thing that he would do?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Well, that's the lightning round, Drew. That was what we need to know about you, and we will make sure that we don't go for deep dish pizza when you come to Winnipeg. We will watch Bull Durham, followed by an episode of Star Wars or Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
From what I could tell, though, I was getting some disapproval for both my Star Wars and what was the other one that you wanted to push back on there? I could see your disappointment in me.
You got 4 out of 8. So
Oh, I got 4 out of 8 correct. Okay, I didn't realize they were right answers.
well, you also got 4 out of 8 incorrect.
So you
There's very,
Glass
very
is half
true.
empty, right?
based on and here's the thing, a lot of these questions are based on what, like, me and Tim, like, I pick
Yeah.
one and he picks the other, so that's why he's got 4 out of 8 correct. So he uses an Android, so that one was one of the ones.
I love Shatner and Nimoy.
He likes Star Trek. Europe he would pick over the Caribbean, and
That was a close one for me.
and he would pick reading over Netflix.
That makes sense. You're a better human being than I am. And just so you know, the glass half empty, glass half full. Someone asked me once, are you glass half empty or glass half full guy? And I can't, maybe it's just because I'm practical, but it strikes me that glass is twice as big as it needs to be.
That's the best answer
I'm
I've
like,
heard
I'm not
today.
glass half empty, glass half full. I'm just like, that glass is too big. So
That's a
put it in
perfect
a
place
smaller
to
glass,
end.
you morons.
That's a perfect place to end.
Thanks again, Drew. I'm going to link everything below. People can buy your book, where they can get it. If you can see it on that camera. This is Day 1, a practical guide to leadership that matters. It's not just talking about the moon landing or anything like that. So it has nothing to do with the moon landing.
I don't believe I mentioned it more than twice.
Yeah, exactly. But it is a fantastic book. And if you want to hear Drew read the book on Audible, it is amazing. But get the physical copy so you can make notes and everything on it as well, because you're going to want to make notes. It's a fantastic book. Thank you, Drew, for joining us.
Albert Camus would do.
Thank you, Drew, for joining us. So, Tim, I'm kind of disappointed. I think I could talk to Drew all day about random things. McRibs. We can talk to him about anything that really comes up in my mind. And I feel like he has a lot of insight into a lot of things. But when he doesn't, like he says, he responds appropriately with, I don't know.
And that's in the book too, where he says sometimes you just don't know. And it's important not to quote unquote BS somebody into if you don't know, you don't know. And that's just the honesty that he comes to writing his book and to talking with us in the interview. And just that humanity in that. And I really appreciate that. But we really had some questions. I think we challenged him in some of the things that he believes in, what he writes in the book, and I think it led to a really good conversation. So I'm really pumped, and I'm happy that we were able to sit down.
We gave him some ideas for his new book. That was fun.
And if anyone out there doesn't know this, you have some experience. You've talked to Drew before through business and so work and so on and so forth. And I had not had a chance to. This is the first time I sat down and actually talked to him. And so I felt I was a little behind the 8 ball, but as far as not really
knowing what he's like,
because I hadn't seen him or talked to him until then. But it was really good. I really appreciated that you were able to get him on the show, and I really enjoyed the book. First of all, because I read it a month ago, and just talking to him. So I really appreciate it. I really hope that we do have a chance to have him on and
in person.
So
next time he's in Winnipeg, hopefully he can come over. We can have some pizza.
Your homework though is to watch Bull Durham before.
I'm gonna watch Bull Durham before, but he's gonna come over and watch it with us.
The story he told about Jerry Howarth was I had not heard that story, and I really love that when we're interviewing someone and you learn something that you didn't know. And I've never heard that story. And he says he considers himself a storyteller. Drew does. And the story he told about Jerry Howarth, who I followed for many years as well, as I
as a Blue Jays fan,
as well as a Jays fan, was a great story.
It was fantastic. Awesome. Well, thanks for watching again. This is the Greg and Tim Show. So if you're not subscribed and this is the first time you've seen us because you liked Drew Dudley, make sure you subscribe and make sure that you hit the like button, share it with all your friends.
Tell
everybody.
Every subscriber gets a free McRib from Greg, I think, right?
No, I don't have a budget.
Oh, okay.
For that. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one. We'll see you again next week where we'll have another new episode. Cheerio. See you later.
Thanks for watching the Greg and Tim Show podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, and share with all your friends. Sharing is caring.